Hello everybody, I hope you can hear me. I hope everybody's doing very well. Let me just... Oh my god, I'm so bad at this. Alrighty, so we are back. Once again, we've got another chapter, Nazi. Now, I am hoping that unlike the previous chapter, which I'm pretty sure was about 50 pages, about a quarter of his entire book, and really had nothing to do with BreadTube at all, I'm hoping that this one is going to have a little bit more to do with what we're actually talking about. So, let's get into it. Chapter 3, Nazi. Biden's first joint address to Congress, delivered on April 28, 2021, contained some subtle but dangerous rhetoric. In his... Okay, I'm already off on a tangent. Didn't this guy praise Trump when he was like in that little conference with Alexander Dugin, and he's like, oh, everything, there were things that Trump said that I applauded. But no, Biden's the fucking terrible one, isn't he? Okay, no, I'm not going to swear on this stream. In his opening, Biden invoked the January 6th Capitol riot when Trump supporters vandalized the halls of U.S. Congress. Vandalized? They were trying to take it over, dude. Okay. As I stand here tonight, just one day shy of the 100th day of my administration, 100 days since I took the oath of office, lifted my hand off our family Bible, and inherited a nation in crisis, the worst pandemic in a century, the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. Biden used the bulk of his address... Contained some subtle but dangerous rhetoric. Okay, you must be getting to it. Biden used the bulk of his address to promise sweeping economic reforms such as infrastructure, healthcare, guaranteed college, and labor union protections. The speech was far more social democratic in its content than anything heard from a US president in recent decades. However, underlying the progressive economic content was hostility to a number of countries, most especially the People's Republic of China. We're in a competition with China and other countries to win the 21st century. We have to do more than just build back. We have to build back better, he told the American people. In my discussion with President Xi, I told him that we welcome the competition and that we are not looking for conflict. No responsible American president can remain silent when basic human rights are violated. A president has to represent the essence of our country. America is an idea, unique in the world. Throughout the speech, Biden used the word autocrat to refer to anti-imperialist governments. Oh, God. Okay. In the final moments of the speech, Biden spelled things out more clearly. America's adversaries, the autocrats of the world, are betting it can't. They believe we are too full of anger and division and rage. They look at the images of the mob that assaulted this capital as proof that the sun is setting on American democracy. They are wrong. We have stared into an abyss of insurrection and autocracy, of pandemic and pain, and we, the people, did not flinch. Insurrection and autocracy. Biden's use of phrase insurrection and autocracy after Biden's use of the phrase? Oh, God. Caleb, get an editor. Seriously. After referring to anti-imperialist leaders as autocrats was an attempt to equate the right-wing crowds that participated in the January 6th events with the governments of Russia, China, Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, and North Korea. However, this is simply the opposite of reality. The bulk of Trump's crowd of supporters chanting "Stop the Steal" were white Americans of working class or middle class origin. However, a big chunk of the crowd were from specific right-wing immigrant constituencies long cultivated by the US intelligence apparatus to fight against anti-imperialist countries. It's always the CIA, isn't it, Caleb? The Falun Gong religious cult that opposes the Chinese Communist Party and publishes the Epoch Times were among the protesters. This group of anti-communists glorify feudalism in China and call the empowerment of women since 1949 a sign that the world is in a Dharma-ending period. The group is very hostile to LGBT people. Supporters of the anti-communist riots in Hong Kong were also present. Supporters of the Pahlavi monarchy, deposed by Iran's 1979 Islamic Revolution, were present, unfurling the monarchist flag and chanting against the Islamic Republic. Busloads of Cuban anti-communists from Miami, along with exiled rich from Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Bolivia, were at the rally echoing Rudy Giuliani's claim that the US elections had been rigged by communists. A large number of Israeli flags were unfurled as supporters of Netanyahu and the Likud party marched in support of the man who murdered Qasem Soleimani and moved the US embassy to Jerusalem. Is there any evidence for this? I mean, it's pretty convenient for Caleb that at Trump's rally, literally every single group that he that he hates, that he has a problem with, were there with their big flags everywhere, like all these royalty people that want monarchies in all these countries that he loves. Very convenient, I'm just going to say. Joe Biden's attempt to link the Capitol riot with the progressive anti-imperialist states targeted by US imperialism was simply inaccurate. Progressive anti-imperialist states. Yeah, when I think of Iran, I think of a progressive anti-imperialist state. I mean, when I think of China, I think of a progressive anti-imperialist state. This is the whole problem with Caleb, is he has just this dichotomized thinking where it's good or bad and you have to break everything. I mean, it's Cold War thinking, isn't it? It's exactly that same thinking that fed into the Cold War, where you're on our side or you're on the other side. And then if you're on the other side, oh, you must believe every single thing, that that I dislike. Everything that I'm for, they must be against. It's just... He's a baby. He's a grown baby. Adult baby, Caleb. Joe Biden's attempt to link the Capitol riot with the progressive anti-imperialist states targeted by US imperialism was simply inaccurate. This was a pro-imperialist mob. The Proud Boys chanted, "West is the best." Okay, they do. They're Western chauvinists. That doesn't mean they're pro-imperialism. Not going off on tangents. We're going to get through this. And the forces blamed for the supposed rigging of the vote were Chinese communists and Bolivarian socialists. To think this right-wing crowd of anti-communists, Zionists, feudalists, libertarians, and anti-Islamic bigots have anything in common with the emerging bloc of 21st century socialism around the world is an absurd delusion. However, this distortion fits the narrative of mainstream US media and BreadTube. Oh, God, I'm so sorry. Well, they're both funded by the CIA, aren't they? Endless attention was given to the racist Confederate flag displayed by white nationalists and neo-Confederates who attended the rally, while the various highly visible pro-imperialist counter-gangs were ignored. Nobody's pointing out that these are all pro-imperialist counter-gangs, that thing that only I talk about. The narrative of mainstream US media, echoed by BreadTube, is that the bulk of America's working class are racist white trash and that Donald Trump was a Nazi attempting to stir them up. Fucking dude. Now I have to swear. Dude, fucking give us an example. I hope he is about to give us a bunch of examples. The narrative of mainstream US media, echoed by BreadTube, is that the bulk of America's working class are racist white trash. Fucking really. This suggests that this populism somehow is the equivalent of Bolivarian socialism, Chinese communism, or the Islamic Revolution of Iran. Dude, it doesn't. You can be opposed to two things and not think those two things are the same. Like, I'm opposed to murder and I'm opposed to people being like assaulted and beaten up in the street. I'm not suggesting that they are somehow equivalent, though. I can, it's possible to walk and chew gum at the same time. Unless you're Caleb, apparently. No. The enemy in the BreadTube narrative is populism, and socialist governments around the world are just another variant of this this evil, the equivalent of fascism. Are they? Did you have any source? I mean, dude, he doesn't. He's just making this shit up. Okay, when the ignorant, inferior working people are rising up and demanding that the state protect them, rallying around a charismatic leader, this is a threat to the non-conformity and freedom of the superior caste of cosmopolitan intellectuals. Jeez, dude, fucking hell. Tell us how you really feel. If I'm taking breaks, it's because I'm drinking scotch, because it's the only way I'm going to get through this shit. This bizarre narrative that views average Americans as the enemy and equates socialist states that control the means of production with Nazi gas chambers has nothing to do with Marxism. Fuck. Oh, man. Okay. However, it is not new. It is a narrative that was carefully cultivated by the Congress for Cultural Freedom and covert manipulation of intellectual discourse throughout the Cold War. BreadTube has taken this toxic narrative to a new, far more illogical and far more absurd level in an attempt to defend the liberal order from right-wing opposition. So wait. So a narrative that's created by the Congress for Cultural Freedom, right? And the CIA during the Cold War, but now BreadTube has taken it even further. So if you think Cold War US propaganda was bad, fuck, wait until you watch like a philosophy tube video or like a thoughts line video where like he's shitting on landlords. Oh man, just you wait. A counter-revolutionary mass movement. Among Marxists and scientific socialists, 3 narrative definitions of fascism are commonly used. The most common narrative repeated by social democrats and mainline communist parties. Is he equating the two? That mainline communist parties are basically the equivalent of social democrats? No, Caleb, you can put two things. Is that fascism is merely a right-wing dictatorship. If conservatives become more authoritarian and totalitarian, this represents creeping fascism. This is the narrative usually used by leftists in the United States to justify voting for the Democratic Party, as Republicans are presented as potential Hitlers. The second definition, put forward by Trotskyites, is that fascism is an ever-present middle-class political movement that condemns both big capital and the labor movement. Trotskyites argue that the current is utilized by big capital to wage a campaign of violence against socialist revolutionaries and progressives in times of capitalist crisis in order to lay the basis for a police and military state. The third definition of fascism, utilized by Soviet-aligned parties during the third period of 1928 to 1935, following the 6th Congress of the Communist International, is that fascism is a cheap capitalist imitation of socialism used to prevent revolution and stabilize the economy in a crisis. On this basis, the Comintern referred to social democrats, who at the time called for political repression of communists, as social fascists. Of course they did. All of these definitions contain an element of truth, but all of them miss the essence of fascism. Fascism is defined by a mass mobilization of destruction and driving down of living conditions intended to resolve an economic crisis. That's a very interesting take. I'll give him that. I've never heard it laid out like that before. But, yeah, interesting. Let's see where he goes with this. Finally, an interesting take from Caleb. Sorry, I just spilled scotch all over me. As Georgy Dimitrov, the leader of the Communist International, explained in 1935, with the development of the very deep economic crisis, with the general crisis of capitalism becoming sharply accentuated and the mass of working people becoming revolutionized, fascism has embarked upon a wide offensive. The ruling bourgeoisie more and more seeks salvation in fascism, with the object of taking exceptional predatory measures against the working people, preparing for an imperialist war of plunder, attacking the Soviet Union, enslaving and petitioning China, and by all these means preventing revolution. Fascism involves a mobilization of society to destroy and drive down living standards in the hopes of resolving an economic crisis. Okay, Caleb, so what you're meant to do, if you have a picture, what you put under the picture explains the picture. You've done nothing of the sort. You've just got some like jackboots here, and then you just like lay out your thesis again. Just begging the argument. All right. The imperialist circles are trying to shift the whole burden of the crisis onto the shoulders of the working people. This is why they need fascism. They are trying to solve the problem of markets by enslaving the weak nations, by intensifying colonial oppression, and repetitioning the world anew by means of war. That is why they need fascism. They are striving to forestall the growth of the forces of revolution by smashing the revolutionary movement of the workers and peasants, and by undertaking a military attack against the Soviet Union, the bulwark of the world proletariat. That is why they need fascism. So they are striving to forestall the growth of the forces of revolution. So they're counter-revolutionary. I wonder what Caleb would make of George Orwell's indictment of the Soviet Union as counter-revolutionary in Homage to Catalonia, where he said that the conservatives and the Soviets worked together essentially as counter-revolutionaries. The most scientific study of fascism is Fascism and Social Revolution, written by British communist intellectual R. Palmdutt in 1934 after Hitler took power in Germany. Really? Like, dude, I get wanting to read old books and old theory and, you know, be the person that knows all of the esoteric, weird stuff. But I don't think you could say the most scientific study of fascism is a book from 1934. Before World War II even started. Like, oh man. He's just stuck in the past. And it's basically, he's arguing, you know, his favorite, like, law. Lore. Dutt explained what fascism is in practice. To endeavour to strangle the powers of production, to arrest development, to destroy material and human forces, to fetter international exchange, to check science and invention, to crush the development of ideas and thought, and to concentrate on the organisation of limited, self-sufficient, non-progressive hierarchic societies in a state of mutual war, in short, to force back society to a more primitive stage in order to maintain the existing class domination. This is the path of fascism, the path to which the ruling party... the path to which the bourgeoisie in all modern countries where it rules is increasingly turning the path of human decay. Dutt rips to shreds the notion that there is some set of ideas or principles that define fascism as a distinct political ideology or economic system. Dutt in 1934 he did this. I mean, all of these things with Caleb are an appeal to authority. The fact that he will just pull out his Marx and quote verbatim, which we've seen in here actually, the really, really long quotations, is because he's not making an argument. He's just pointing us to, look, the argument already exists. The answer already exists. You just have to follow this book. He's really zealous in that. Dutt writes, fascism in this specific or narrower sense is marked by definite familiar characteristics. In the case of the fascist movements, by the characteristics of terrorism, extra-legal fighting formations, anti-parliamentarism, parliamentarism, national and social demagogy, etc. In the case of the completed fascist dictatorships, by the suppression of all other parties and organizations, and in particular, the violent suppression of all independent working class organization, the reign of terror, the totalitarian state, etc. Most tankies seem to have a negative view towards Orwell, although I know of at least one Trotskyist who views him in a positive light. Yeah, no, I am... So I'm not a tanky, I'm not a communist, and I... yeah, you are correct that, you know, me chucking Orwell out there isn't going to be like a slam dunk for any tankies that are listening. But yeah, it was reading A March to Catalonia that really, and particularly that line where he talked about the Soviet Union as counter-revolutionary, that kind of crystallized in, for me, that, you know, the whole dichotomy that Caleb's laying out here, I think is a false one, between, you know, Soviet Union good, America bad, basically. After summarizing the diverse creeds, principles, economic theories, mythologies, and rhetorical styles utilized by fascists, Dutch shows that all of them are mere bombast. Fascism is defined by action in the form of political violence and repression, not any clear set of principles. All these abstract general conceptions, which are paraded as the peculiar outlook of fascism, have no distinctive character whatever, but are common to 1,000 schools of bourgeois political philosophy, which are not yet fascist, and in particular to all national conservative schools. Fascism, in fact, developed as a movement in practice, in the conditions of threatening proletarian revolution, as a counter-revolutionary mass movement supported by the bourgeoisie, employing weapons of mixed social demagogy and terrorism to defeat the revolution and build up a strengthened capitalist state dictatorship, and only later endeavored to adorn and rationalize this process with a theory. It is in this actual historical process that the reality of fascism must be found, and not in the secondary derivative attempts post festum at adornment with a theory. Dutt points out that unlike revolutionary leftist movements, fascism does not achieve power through struggle, but rather is called upon by the power structure after a long period of grooming. Fascism has never conquered power in any country. In every case, fascism has been placed in power from above by the bourgeois dictatorship. In Italy, fascism was placed in power by the king, who refused to sign the decree of martial law against it, and invited Mussolini to power. Mussolini's legendary March on Rome took place in a wagon-lit sleeping car. In Germany, fascism was placed in power by the president, at a time when it was heavily sinking in support in the country, as shown by the elections. The bourgeoisie, in fact, has in practice... Wait, I'm going to stop there. In Germany, fascism was placed in power by the president. Does he mean when Hindenburg made Hitler chancellor? I mean, that was an attempt at... because I think it was, in Hitler's cabinet, it was like a coalition, and they had normal conservatives that they thought would temper Hitler. It was an attempt to simmer everything down, yeah, but it wasn't by saying, go for it, be fascist. It was, let's give him, a little bit, let's concede a little bit, and he'll play fair, and he'll back off. So very wrong on that one, Caleb. What a surprise, Caleb is wrong. The bourgeoisie, in fact, has in practice passed power from one hand to the other and called it a revolution, while the only reality has been the intensified oppression of the working class. After the establishment of the full fascist dictatorship, the policy has been... Oh, sorry, this isn't... This is not Caleb. I thought, because we're reading Caleb's book, I thought this was Caleb talking, but no, this is just another in a long line of gigantic fucking quotations from someone else. Blah, blah, blah. Despite the show of a few gestures of assistance to small capital, the most unlimited and ruthless policy of monopolist capital, the whole machinery of fascism mercilessly turned against those of its former supporters who had been innocent enough to expect some anti-capitalist action and called for a second revolution. Okay. So conclude then. Like, you've used all of... So, now I'm going to, put on my teaching hat He's just included so much of somebody else's stuff, and then he just goes straight on. You should never end with a quotation. Like, what he now has to do is explain what that means for his argument. Although he hasn't fucking made his argument, has he? I mean, unless it's BreadTube serves imperialism because they're all CIA-funded Trotskyists. The myth of fascist ideology and aesthetics. This scientific understanding of fascism as an attempt to stabilize capitalist scientific understanding. How is it scientific, Caleb? Do you mean because it's an analysis? How is it scientific? I mean, he's clearly just throwing that in there in order to give it a little bit more authority than just saying, this dude from 80-something years ago, his whole thing about fascism. But no, it's this scientific understanding of fascism. As an attempt to stabilize capitalist society amid a crisis through brute force, economic regression, and a mobilization of destruction and barbarism, leading toward war, was the understanding used by those who were most successful in defeating fascism. The communists who mobilized to beat back Oswald Mosley in Britain at the 1936 Battle of Cable Street held this understanding of fascism. Were they all communists? Sorry, I'm gonna put a pin in that because I don't think obviously the Battle of Cable Street is fucking fantastic, but to just try and claim that for only communists instead of just, an uprising of working class people of various different agendas. A certain pattern is coming out in this where everything from history is just kind of little massaged in a little way, and just, just everything kind of leads to Caleb's point, and he just says it as though it. So the underground resistance in Germany and the occupied countries, which sabotaged armaments and bombed railways, was led by communists who had this understanding of fascism. The underground resistance in Germany and the occupied. The Red Army that liberated Auschwitz concentration camp and eventually took Berlin had this understanding of fascism. Did it? Did they? I mean, dude, you've just spent like 5 pages of some other dude's book, basically, and then you're just like, yeah, everyone that I like also thought that. Did they? Like, how did the Red Army have that understanding of fascism? However, since the end of the Second World War, there's been a huge attempt huge. Not a concerted attempt. He's just wonderful with words, Caleb, isn't he? A huge attempt to erode this scientific understanding and replace it with one that is more convenient for the Western capitalists. Recognizing that fascism emerges from the natural workings and failures of capitalism is certainly an argument in favor of socialism and against the capitalist system. Undermining this definition and replacing it with subjective, aesthetic, and philosophical obfuscations has been a key task of the US intelligence apparatus. Dude, fucking... As if you... Okay. The Congress for Cultural Freedom, formed in 1949 as an association of left-wing artists, scientists, and academics who opposed communism, is considered by the US Central Intelligence Agency to be one of its most successful operations. The organization was funded by the CIA and the Trotskyite Irving Kristol, an associate of Max Shachtman, who later became known as the father of neoconservatism. Was selected to lead the operation. That's a bad sentence, dude. Literary magazines such as Partisan Review, Encounter, Paris Review, and De Monet were subsidized and circulated throughout the United States, Britain, and Western countries to nudge leftist circles away from the Soviet perspective. I mean, the Soviet Union did pretty well with that when they invaded Hungary, but kind of a late reply. Wasn't accusing you of anything, mostly mentioned due to the observation of them. Yeah, no, I mean, and when I said that initially, when I threw out the Orwell, I was like, well, yeah, Caleb's not going to fucking like that. And there's a whole bunch of, communists that, like left communists, small c communists that fucking hate Orwell anyway, for how he acted in the late 40s and the early 50s. But that's cool. Theodore Adorno, a Marxist intellectual associated with the Frankfurt School, had his work subsidized and promoted as part of the Congress for Cultural Freedom operation. His work was published in De Monet, and his research for the authoritarian personality was conducted with individuals tied to the Tavistock Institute of Human Relations, an entity widely known to be utilized for research by British intelligence. The conclusions of Adorno's writing on the concept of an authoritarian personality are a complete departure from scientific Marxism. Okay, so without going any further, things evolve. Like, I think I made this in one of the other streams when I was reading this book. It would be like getting really interested in evolutionary biology and only reading Darwin. Just going back to Charles Darwin every single time because he was the first one to do it. Ignoring like a century and a half, getting up to 2 centuries now, of work that's been done on evolution. And it's the same with this. Like, anything that goes against orthodox Marxism, or Marxist-Leninism, it seems, like, it just needs to be thrown out, or is, like, purposefully trying to, like, misrepresent or, like, be mean to Marx. Like, the fact that, Adorno's writing might depart from Marxism doesn't necessarily make it wrong. I mean, it makes it bad for orthodox Marxists. It makes it bad for someone like Caleb, who wants to point to Marx and just say, look, there it is, everything we need, except for a bit of Lenin. Among his sources, Adorno cites the crackpot. I mean, it's the kind of emotive language and the language features that he used in this are very telling. The crackpot psychoanalyst Wilhelm Reich, infamous for his orgone machine that supposedly captured a magical energy source created from human orgasms. Reich also claimed that he was in contact with extraterrestrial creatures. Much like the crackpot Reich, who was expelled from psychoanalysis by Freud and expelled from the German Communist Party before moving to... We're going to read this one. Psychoanalyst Wilhelm Reich was convicted of fraud by the Food and Drug Administration for marketing an orgone machine that had no real medical value. Reich's narrative that Nazism is rooted in sexual repression is a key influence on Theodor Adorno, Susan Sontag, and the synthetic left's reinterpretation of fascism. Like, so... I don't care about this dude. Whatever. Like, I mean, it seems... like, is he like getting chicks into this machine and then giving them orgasms? Like, good for him. Good for them. What is it, the 40s? Fucking go nuts. So this notion of primary versus secondary sources, because it's like, Adorno and all these other people that reinterpret it down the track, they clearly, must be... they mustn't have the best stuff available for them. Primary sources are good for some things, okay? But they're not necessarily, or in all cases, better than secondary sources, because secondary sources can include a synthesis, a collection, a collation of information that you can use to draw wider conclusions from. And so the fact that, they're reinterpreting it, or it's a, in some cases, like historical revisionism, isn't necessarily a bad thing. Historical revisionism isn't necessarily a bad thing. And this is where we get into things like historiography and there's lots of really interesting and complex conversations and issues around that, around changing, with new evidence, what we thought we knew about the past. But Caleb's not interested in that. And, okay, New York City in the 1930s. Adorno argues that fascism is rooted in psychological and cultural trends, not the breakdown of capitalism. But what if he's fucking right, dude? Like, you're not... He's just... So he has yet to, and maybe he will he'll demonstrate how Adorno is wrong. But he's not doing that currently. He's just saying what Adorno's argument is, and then because it's different, saying, what an idiot. He can't even see. Like, he clearly knows nothing. Like, what you have to do is you have to then demonstrate why that argument is wrong. And maybe he's about to, but, I've already read over 100 pages of this book, and so I don't have high hopes. Among the various leftist intellectuals and cultural critics who are now documented to have been covertly promoted by the US intelligence in the post-World War II years, a new narrative exists about what fascism is. Adorno documents an authoritarian personality of individuals who are deemed to be deviant because they would be predisposed to be part of a mass political movement and seek to make sacrifices for causes greater than themselves. The way that he has phrased that makes it seem like, on the face of it, to be bad. Like, seek to make sacrifices for causes greater than themselves. The fact that he has summarized it and he hasn't included a direct quote for what authoritarian personality actually is makes me seem like he is lying. Susan Sontag, another CIA favorite, spent pages reflecting on the fascist aesthetic in a New York Times Review of Books piece. In Sontag's mind, fascism is extravagant effort and the endurance of pain. Oh, see? So Sontag gets a big old reference, but not Adorno. Interesting. So, extravagant effort and the endurance of pain, the massing of groups of people, the turning of people into things, the multiplication and replication of things, and grouping of people, things around an all-powerful hypnotic leader figure or force. The fascist dramaturgy centers on the orgiastic transactions between mighty forces and their puppets, uniformly garbed and shown in swelling numbers. Its choreography alternates between ceaseless motions and a congealed, static, virile posing. Mass athletic demonstration, a choreographed display of bodies, are a valued activity in all totalitarian countries. And the art of the gymnast, so popular now in Eastern Europe, also evokes recurrent features of fascist aesthetics, the holding in or confining of force, military precision. Hannah Arendt, a favorite of the partisan review milieu, composed a book entitled Eichmann in Jerusalem, which was widely praised. In the book, she put forward the widely celebrated concept of the banality of evil, arguing that genocidal Nazi war criminal Adolf Eichmann was just an ordinary person, essentially making the case that all populism and mass mobilizations are fascistic in essence because deep down ordinary working class people are potential Nazis. Where he said essentially making the case that in the other ones he's just summarized it, and I think summarized it in a misleading way. The fact that he then even takes a step further back to say, well, essentially making the case that because deep down ordinary working class people are potential Nazis. Sure, Caleb. All of these concepts and redefinitions were implied throughout the Cultural Revolution of the 1960s and 70s, when long-haired counterculture youth decried their pro-military right-wing parents as fascists. This redefinition of fascism to be people working together in groups for a common aim. Fuck off. Or people acting like responsible adults and controlling their impulses. Why have you put quotation marks around that? Who is saying that? Oh, people acting like responsible adults and controlling their impulses is literally fascism. Flowed from the New York Times, academia, and everywhere else in US society. I love that the the cultural revolution of the 1960s and 70s is given one paragraph, and it's basically just fanfic. Caleb's fanfic about all the people that he doesn't like. The ultimate purpose of this non-materialist, idealist retelling of the 1930s was revealed in 1982 when Susan Sontag spilled the beans in front of a crowd of protesters who had gathered to protest in support of the anti-communist and anti-Semitic Solidarność dock workers of Poland. Sontag said, "Communism is fascism, successful fascism, if you will. What we have called fascism is, rather, the form of tyranny that can be overthrown, that has largely failed. I repeat, not only is fascism an overt military rule, the probable destiny of all communist societies, especially where their populations are moved to revolt, but communism is in itself a variant, the most successful variant, of fascism. Fascism with a human face." Okay, interesting. Susan Sontag equated the Red Army that took Berlin, the Abraham Lincoln Brigade volunteers who fought Franco in Spain, the activists who organized in support for the Scottsboro Nine against Jim Crow, and almost all of the greatest heroes of the 1930s and 40s with the very entity they successfully defeated. Did she? When was this? 1982. So 1982 communism, which still would have been the Soviet Union. What was the Soviet Union like in 1982, Caleb? What? Were they in Afghanistan then? Pretty sure they were, right? Have you heard the stories of what shit they did to the Afghanis? Like, I mean, yeah, I'm not pro-Soviet Union. I'm not pro-America, so I don't have to support fucking either of them. And, yeah, like, critique away, dude. Oh, man, it is like, oh, everybody. Everybody on. Okay, sorry, we're gonna get through this. To the synthetic left, brought to you by the CIA. Fascism is not a form of Bonapartism intended to hold off revolution as capitalism enters a crisis. Rather, it is people refusing to become atomized and easily controlled individuals and holding on to any notion of solidarity and joint effort. Do you think that's what she meant in that thing? You don't think she was talking about a regime? Because there's a difference between, like, the theory of communism and a regime, right? Like, you wouldn't smear all of Marx with, like, Stalin, the Holodomor. You wouldn't point to the Holodomor and say, well, that's why Marx can't work. That's why we can never look at the contradictions within capitalism. That's why you can never be anti-capitalist, because it's Stalin. Like, that's ridiculous. That's exactly what you're doing, dude. Okay, right. Progressives who refuse to embrace their individualist anti-populism that view average working people as a dangerous mob, most especially communists, are deemed to be fascists. Dude, such a fucking reach. All right. More scotch, sorry. 15 pages in. Pretty sure this chapter's like 50 pages. Natalie wins fascists. Natalie Contrapoints Wynn, the shining star of the BreadTube internet sphere, who stands shoulders above her colleagues in terms of production values and coherent narrative, gained mainstream appreciation for her video Decrypting the Alt-Right, How to Recognize a Fascist. I would say that Philosophy Tube also has incredibly good production value. And probably H-Bomber Guy now too. And actually, so many people's production value is very good. You know, it comes with practice, I guess, as well, and seeing other people do it. All right. While much of Contrapoints' work contains useful insights, this particular video is almost comedic at points. Oh, Caleb is laughing at you. One is forced to think of the 1964 film Dr. Strangelove, which mocked the anti-communist hysteria. In the film, a particularly crazed general speaks obsessively about bodily fluids and brags that he only drinks rainwater because he believes most liquids have been contaminated by a secret communist conspiracy. Dude, I'm also a film teacher, and I would take nothing that Caleb has to say about a film. What would I say? At face value, to be interesting analysis. I can't imagine that Caleb would have an interesting critique of a film or an interesting take on a film. It would all just be, is this CIA funded? What do they say about communists? What do they... they said one bad thing about Stalin. They must be for the atomization of working class people. Contrapoints begins the video stating, contemporary fascists hold 3 core beliefs. She lists them as a belief in the sacredness of the white race, the conspiracy theory that Jews seek to conduct white genocide or replacement, and the ultimate goal of creating a white ethno-state in which non-whites and degenerates are purged. This is certainly an accurate description of what white nationalists believe. However, the right wing, especially in the age of the internet, is far more vast and ideologically diverse. Many far-rightists are anarcho-capitalists who advocate unregulated free market capitalism. They want no government intervention whatsoever in the economy or on matters of sex, race, or social justice. Many far-rightists are anti-Islamic bigots who do not believe Jews are a secret cabal, but rather see Israel as an outpost of civilization against the menace of Islam. Amir Yasser, hello. Hello to you as well. Far-right circles are full of followers of Julius Evola, traditionalist Catholics, neo-Confederates, libertarians, incels, etc. The white national current exists as one of many strands of dissident right-wing thought. Okay, so the Julius Evola people, traditionalist Catholics, neo-Confederates, I would guarantee a large proportion of those also believe in the things that Contrapoints laid out, those 3 rules. There are some people that read Julius Evola because of the esoteric, nature of it, kind of like the people that read Nietzsche because of that kind of, the chic vibe. But, yeah, dude. The white national current exists as one of many strands of dissident right-wing thought. Contrapoints then spends the... Yeah, wait. So Caleb's like, well, fascists can't just believe these things because all these other right-wingers don't believe that. I thought... anyway, Contrapoints then spends the rest of the video developing all kinds of loopholes through which individuals who have nothing in common with white nationalism can be linked to it. So if you want to recognize a fascist, you have to know how to read subtext and hear dog whistles, because 99 times out of 100, a fascist will disavow fascism, racism, and white supremacy, at least when talking to you, a non-fascist. Contrapoints explains, I'm not a fascist is exactly what a fascist would say. Is it true that many white nationalists conceal their views and operate covertly in broader conservative circles? Yes. Is it true that many advocates of a white ethno-state who harbour anti-Semitic views will conceal this message when creating broader content? Yes. However, Contrapoints video, okay, you needed an apostrophe in there, basically argues that anything can be a dog whistle, anyone can be a fascist, and all that is necessary to prove it is something as meaningless as a hand gesture, a slip of the tongue, or most importantly, a disagreement with the mainstream of the left. I mean, this is... it's just high school. It's like arguing with a teenager. You will say something and then they go, oh, what? So, and then they lay out something, like really ridiculous. Oh, so you believe that, right? It's like, no. Like, what I believe is, and what I'm saying is the thing that I just said. Like, Caleb can't take anything on its own terms. It seems, from, being 115 pages into this fucking book. He always has to, and whether it's whether this is because he's purposefully trying to be sneaky or not, he always has to create some straw man and then attack that. It's like, oh, Contrapoint says this. Oh, well, what she's basically saying then is, and then creates this ridiculous straw man. And then it's like, it's pretty stupid, isn't it? It's like, yeah, Caleb, that is pretty fucking stupid, but that's not what she said. That's what you said. Scotch break, sorry. All right. The overwhelming majority of people in the United States feel patriotic, but according to Contrapoints, statements like, I love my country, could be interpreted as coded fascist messaging. Like, yeah, it could be. That's the entire point. Oh. That is the entire point of subtext, Caleb. It's that, yeah, it could be. It's, I was reading something... No, I think it was watching R.M. Brown the other day. Arun Brown. And he was talking about, I think it was the Hays Code in America that prohibited films from, being overtly sexual or things of that nature. And so what then they had to do is develop so much subtext because people still wanted to see those stories and sexuality and all the kind of things that were banned were part of storytelling, were part of human experience. And so there was so much that was made subtle and not overtly. God, what's the opposite of overt? Subtextually sexual, and there's deniability there, and that's exactly what this kind of thing. I love my country could be interpreted as coded fascist messaging. Does the book mention Bosch? It does. So at the start, pardon me, there was a huge section on Bosch. I think it was in the first... So they're up on my channel. I uploaded them as videos. I think it was in the first one that I did. He introduced Contrapoints. Pretty sure she got like 1 to 3 paragraphs. And then Bosch got like 5 pages. Because I'm pretty sure that he's been on Bosch or Bosch has done a video about him. And so he just was trying to shit all over Bosch. And that's basically what this entire book seems to be, is that he's had a couple of interactions with people on BreadTube. And then he's just had this whole thing where he's like, oh, well, obviously then BreadTube, because they disagree with me, they just serve imperialism. It's very funny. Oh my God, I hadn't seen this excerpt. He has obviously never spent any time looking at fascist communities online. No, right? And that's the thing, so this next bit, gestures like thumbs up or OK signs are used by millions of Americans each day. But according to Contrapoints, these could indeed be secret Nazi hand signs. Where has Caleb been? I know he has a YouTube channel. He apparently writes books. He's been an activist, political activist for decades. How has he not seen any of that? That's exactly what they were doing. And then the milk thing and the entire reason is because then people can say, oh, okay, it's just the okay hand signal. You can calm down. It's that deniability. He's just so uninformed, ill-informed, or just purposefully misrepresenting it. Contrapoints' video would be laughable if it were not taken seriously by many of the millions of people who viewed it. One of the primary targets of this bizarre cancel culture conspiracy theory is anti-imperialist leftists. One of the primary targets of this bizarre cancel culture conspiracy theory is anti-imperialist leftists. Bizarre it took a fucking turn. Yo, what up? I just saw this. Taking a break from editing footage for Caleb. Joe. For a vid I'm working on. What are the chances? Haha. Wow, I feel incredibly sorry for you. But I can't wait to see it. That will be excellent. Can you tell us a little bit about what the video is about? All right. Across the internet, commentators like Jimmy Dore, Kim Iverson, and others who do not agree with US foreign policy are considered to be fascists and crypto-fascists. Why? Why might they be considered that? So again, putting on my teacher hat, when you're making an argument, you bring up counter-arguments. You bring up contrary points to your argument, and then you prove why they're incorrect. And it bolsters your argument. Caleb just goes, oh, well, here's all the counter arguments, and then crosses his arms and goes, right, as if. Literally, fascists will talk openly to each other about stuff like this online. Contra doesn't. Yeah, exactly. We on for later. Absolutely. I am, fully, I've got a heap of scotch. I got some beers in the fridge. I am in for a night of just hilarious streaming. So yes, absolutely am. I'm just trying to, because I've been offline for a week because I've had my kids, and just trying to warm up again. It's painful. I imagine it must be. Okay. Didn't age well chucking Jimmy Dore in there, but... So the proof, okay, is that they support anti-imperialist countries like China, Syria, Venezuela, Russia, etc. Just etc. These countries have been declared fascist by US media, and therefore anyone who shows sympathy with them is fascist by default. No, like, so this is the thing with the Uyghurs in Xinjiang. Like, you can criticize the Chinese government for what seems to be amounting to genocidal treatment, like, of a minority. And that doesn't make you, like, pro-imperialism. Fucking stupid. It's about Caleb, but also all of these white socialists, my brain hurts from editing right now, so it's hard to explain. All good, that would be great. I just got locked out of my house, got back in, shit hella sucks. Oh no, that sounds like a terrible day. I hope you've chilled out now, though. I hope you can relax a little bit. And I hope you didn't have to break anything either. If you're reminded of McCarthyism, you should be. If one showed sympathy... Like, this is a screed. This entire book is a screed. It's yeah, that's all I can say. If one showed sympathy for the Soviet Union or Mao's China during the 1950s, you were dismissed as a communist. Careers and lives were destroyed by the House Un-American Activities Committee. Yeah, fuck yeah. Like, McCarthyism fucking sucks. You know who's an interesting US president that I hadn't, until recently, heard much about or looked into, was Eisenhower. Like, you know, obviously a Republican, you know, did he lead the Allies at Normandy, at D-Day? Anyway, you know, huge war hero from World War II. And he was pretty I mean, thinking of what the Republican Party is now, you know, the fact that he warned about, you know, the growing, the burgeoning military-industrial complex. Like, he wasn't super on board with McCarthyism in private. He tried to, you know, ream it back, but, you know, he kind of got dragged along with it. Yeah, super interesting dude. He's literally doing McCarthyism with his book, calling everyone he dislikes CIA over and over. Exactly. 100% what he's doing. I'll be right back. Do want to chill in the aircon? Yeah, absolutely. McCarthyism was a mobilizer... Okay, whoa. Okay. Organizations with the word work in their name were falsely accused of being communist front groups. Individuals were forced to disavow their friends, relatives, and co-workers. I mean, I will also say that, like, the Soviet Union was trying to export their brand of communism. You know, communist parties from around the world would send their people to be trained in the Soviet Union and then to come back. Like, they were clearly trying to spread it as well. Now, this is not saying that what America did was groovy, okay? I'm not saying that. I'm anti-US and anti-USSR. You can be both. Walk and chew gum at the same time. Just saying. Individuals were forced to disavow their friends, relatives, and co-workers. McCarthyism was a mobilization to silence all critics of US foreign policy as the Cold War exploded following the Second World War. Wow, finally, a sentence that is true. In the new Cold War, BreadTube is being... Oh, Caleb, I just said that I agreed with you. Okay, in the new Cold War, BreadTube is being utilized to destroy the lives and careers of all who don't echo the rhetoric against Russia and China. You've written and published a book. You get paid to fly to these countries to, like... Oh, man. Oh... Eisenhower was handpicked by the corporate religious right, though. He was trying to bridge the gap between the remnants of the social gospel and the new right-wing prosperity gospel. That's really interesting. I didn't realize that the prosperity gospel stuff was that new. I guess I had just assumed that was. So were there like social gospel, like I guess conservative, like religious conservatives in the 30s that were kind of like not super anti New Deal then? I am not clued up on that aspect of American history. Interesting. True sentence followed by insanity. Caleb's modus operandi. Yeah, if you like this, just wait for this next bit. Contrapoints and BreadTube do not apply this guilt by association and conspiratorial decoding to liberals. Are you kidding? They fucking hate liberals, dude. Joe Biden can salute the flag, shake hands with Republicans, give a thumbs up, or do whatever he wants and not be declared fascist by BreadTube. Joe Biden's series of racial gaffes, his string of sexual assaults, rape allegations from Tara Reade, his support for the Iraq War, his crime bill, are all forgivable mistakes. What the fuck are you talking? Is it just because some people said, vote like pragmatically? I don't think that they have forgivable mistakes, dude. And I don't think people on BreadTube consider them gaffes. I think they consider them racist. There's a really good book about it called One Nation Under God. But yeah, the New Deal and stuff like that was widely supported by a lot of Christians. Oh, that is so interesting. And I mean, on Reddit, I think it's called like Radical Christianity or something. And it is. It it feels like that more social justice kind of religion that in Australia, I mean, we've kind of had a lot of. And, now though, with our fucking Pentecostal Prime Minister, and he's got a bunch of Pentecostals in cabinet. I mean, the religious right in Australia is very different. But yeah, we've got like Father Bob who writes things, and he's always out, doing stuff on the street, ministering, but with homeless people, and yeah, it's that's very interesting. So what is it? One Nation Under God. I will check that out. Thank you. Okay, let's go back to just lies. None of these vicious actions and blatantly racist words render Joe Biden to be part of the secret fascist conspiracy that sits at the center of the BreadTube worldview. I'm pretty sure people on BreadTube are like, he's a Republican. Like, yeah, he is. There was Some More News. I know if Some More News is considered part of BreadTube, I probably would. A couple of years ago where Some More News put out a thing, Joe Biden primary Donald Trump as a Republican. Because that's what you are. Why? Unlike the right wing and the legitimate anti-imperialist left, he defends the status quo, so by definition he cannot be fascist. Fuck. Oh my god, my brain is melting. So I need more scotch. BreadTube routinely insists phrases like international bankers or Western civilization are fascist dog whistles, yet Hillary Clinton's use of the term super predators is deemed to be merely an understandable mistake or error. Who on the left on YouTube has said that it is an understandable mistake or error? Fucking who has said that, Caleb? I wish I was arguing with Caleb. Does Caleb do debates? I'm not a debate bro. But I just want to yell at Caleb and just tell him that he's very, very stupid. But then, I mean, that's me giving him the benefit of the doubt, though. I mean, something he doesn't do. I'm assuming that he is coming at this legitimately with good intentions and a good heart. I mean, he might not be. For all I know, this is all purposeful propaganda where he's twisting everything he can. Because ThoughtSlime made fun of him. Legitimate anti-imperialists are routinely baited for supporting anti-imperialist states like Russia or China deemed fascist by mainstream media. What? When? What are you talking about? However, the Democratic Party's embracing of Israel, Saudi Arabia, and other US-aligned regimes that violate human rights never renders them red, browns, or crypto-fascists. No, but they're neoliberals. We know that. Like, there's a difference between, like, being neoliberal and being a fascist. Like, you can argue about the effect of each, but the intentions are not the same. Like, neoliberals that support Israel and Saudi Arabia, even though they're committing just the most horrendous human rights violations in Yemen, and like are pro selling weaponry and like, you know, pro the military industrial complex, that, like, there's a difference. They're bad too. Like, oh, okay. Extremely good formatting in his self-published book. No notes. Exactly. Like, even if he had some little footnotes every now and again. Like, he doesn't need to include it. He just needs to have some footnotes and, like, go to this video. I mean, particularly because it's all about BreadTube, right? Or the mainstream media. Like, if he's getting these things from somewhere, he could just link this article by the New York Times and the URL. Or even not, just the article title and the year in the footnotes. He could link Contrapoints video here. And even if he didn't give a timestamp, it's like, okay, she must have said it in there somewhere. I honestly just think his problem is that he wants communism with American characteristics and doesn't understand that's an irreconcilable contradiction. Yeah, I mean, it's like the whole American patriotism. What is it? The communist patriot, whatever that shit, the whole infrared thing at the moment is. And is it to be edgy? Is it because he doesn't actually, understand it? I mean, maybe Caleb doesn't understand that that's a contradiction. Because from what he's presenting in here, and like I said earlier, that, you know, the 1930s, 1934 is the newest book that he has referenced. Everything is earlier than that. And so he has none of the scholarship of the past 150 years post-Marx. Like, he's just very ignorant, I think. Contrapoints, again, Contrapoints video. You might want a little apostrophe in there, Caleb. Infrared will be in this video I'm making, Maupin. It is brutal. Has blocked me on Twitter, unfortunately. I'm just gonna assume that is because I owned him so bad. That's the reason that he blocked me. But yeah, very funny. Also, I haven't seen any other people say that they were blocked by him, so I don't know. Why am I so special? Contrapoints video has been utilized to destroy the lives of countless individuals. Oh man. Internet harassment campaigns are mobilized frequently against all kinds of people. Jeopardy contestants, adolescents on social media, confused conservatives, random Trump supporters, legitimate anti-imperialist leftists, and all who do not immediately bow before NATO and the Pentagon run the risk of being declared a literal Nazi by the internet cult of anti-fascists who demand 100% adherence to MSNBC talking points. Oh man, he should take up comedy. He would make great YouTube videos if he just made all these like bizarre conspiracy bullshit. Like in here, that's so many assertions, and he doesn't even say Jeopardy contestant Tom Smith, confused conservative congressman, blah blah blah, like nothing. I think it's an attempt at populism to create a mass movement via concession to the right, because he views the American right as the idealized working class subject. Yeah, and I mean, I think it's the Fox News view, right? Is it Hinkle or one of the infrared people the other day posted some comment that was like, I'm a conservative in Appalachia, and if all the left wing stuff messaging was like this, they'd win so bad. And they were like, see, this is exactly why we need to do it. It's like that's one person. Also, who knows if it was real? I'm not blocked and I talked mad shit to him too. Pure insanity. Antifa cocaine. Biggest man of straw. Has Antifa come up in this? I don't know if Antifa has come up at all in this entire book. Like much of BreadTube, Contrapoints... Another missing apostrophe, Caleb. Ideology is inconsistent. Sometimes she seems like a social democrat or anarchist, but other times it seems like she's merely pro-establishment warrior working to purge the US government apparatus of an evil, secret fascist conspiracy that has taken it over. Okay, I'm going to say two things here. One, it's possible to have a variety of beliefs, and sometimes they conflict and contradict each other. We're humans. We're fallible, you know. We might hold contradictory views. Being hypocritical also is not like a nail in the coffin for someone's case. I think it was, you know, I went through a Sam Harris phase about a decade ago, but I'm pretty sure it was Sam Harris said that, you know, humans have about 90,000 different ideas or opinions or views or something like that. So obviously within that 90,000 there are going to be a bunch that are contradictory, and you know, I mean, that's the dialectic, right? Like the Hegelian dialectic is bringing those up and then, you know, seeing which one it's but so the second thing I'm going to say is he on one hand, you know, it's evil, blah, 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 pro-establishment. And then on the other, social democrat or anarchist. Those things are very different, Caleb. Like, very different. Hinkle used to run as a SOCDEM environmentalist for public office, and now he's just some phony media personality. That sucks. Yeah, just getting into the, like, edgelord shit. Yes, oh my god, hypocrisy is such a bad counter-argument. Yeah, I mean, pointing out someone's hypocrisy should lead to, you know, it should be done in it's like, oh, that seems hypocritical, like, doesn't it? To make them think, oh, yeah, maybe it does, instead of hypocrisy, you know, full stop, AOC, blah, 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 then, and also blah, blah, blah. Well, she's CIA Trotskyist shill. Oh, okay. Okay. So he's just going to make shit up now. Much like the anti-Semitic narrative that views Western capitalism and imperialism as inherently good, much like the anti-Semitic narrative that views Western capitalism and imperialism as inherently good, but merely corrupted by a sinister cabal. Okay, Contrapoints seems to argue, yeah, it seems to you, dude, okay, that the evils of American capitalism are due to a sinister conspiracy of white nationalists, not the system itself. If only this conspiracy can be purged, everything will be fine. So I've watched a good deal of Contrapoints videos. I have to say, since they got longer and longer form, I haven't actually, because it's such an investment. So I actually haven't watched a bunch of the new ones. But I follow Contrapoints, you know, even before she transitioned. And she's been making anti-capitalist critiques for all of that time. And never. So the only thing I can think of that he might be referencing here is, you know, those skits where she had, you know, like the lizard people, the bourgeoisie is lizard people. And, you know, she goes on to say that, you know, well, I don't think it is a secret cabal of, you know, evil lizard people. It's more the, like the corrupting nature of, you know, being in that position within a capitalist society where so much exploitation has had to happen and, you know, that you kind of have to be evil, or, you know, the implication is that you must be kind of bad, if you are profiting from that. But she's not arguing that it's, you know, we just get rid of this secret cabal of lizard people and then, you know, capitalism will sort itself out. Of course, oh, here we go. Of course, in the worldview extolled by much of BreadTube, if you dare disagree that the West is a bastion of tolerance and freedom... Okay, no one fucking says that, dude. No one on BreadTube is saying that. They're all criticizing the societies in which they live. Okay. While China, Russia, Syria, and Venezuela are evil fascist regimes, you must be a fascist yourself. Who says that? Who has said that those regimes are a fascist regime? Also, fucking Syria, dude. I think I've skipped that. How have I been skipping? I think maybe I've been thinking he's talking about Libya. How? Syria? You wanna defend Bashar al-Assad, the dude who's president because his dad was president? Like, oh man. I don't think he's going as deep as you're giving him credit for. He's literally just mad that she's naming signs of fascism. That's also true. Like I said earlier, you know, with particularly, you know, how hard he goes at Thought Slime, Bosch, and Destiny, who I think he has to throw in because, I mean, those are the three people that it feels like he's had disagreements with and has just been, you know, laying awake at night and just getting angry and angrier over. And then he's just gone and written this entire book just to try and, like, have a go at them. And someone, I think it was No Epiphany, said in a previous stream how these all just feel, either they are or they feel like just previous essays that he's cobbled together. And, you know, like I pointed out, how he would, you know, Central Intelligence Agency, and then he'd have in brackets CIA, and then just progressively he would keep saying Central Intelligence Agency or Ian Vosh Kaczynski or whatever, and then just keep saying Ian Vosh Kaczynski instead of Vosh. Either, well, these aren't mutually exclusive, but poor editing, obviously. But also, yeah, it just tends to feel like a bunch of cobbled together arguments that he didn't even then fucking read over. You're being extremely charitable, which speaks to your credit, but he really doesn't deserve it. Well, I might be here, but because I wanted to read the entire book before I did a little video on Caleb, and I don't think I'm going to be in that video. I think he is a vindictive, mean-spirited little dude, and the thing that really got me was bringing up Thought Slime's mum's white collar crime, like laying that out. Like, he's clearly gone and, you know, done a bunch of fucking research on that, nothing else it seems, and then just like bringing that shit up, just so mean-spirited and vindictive. And I'm probably going to call him, yeah, a bunch of pretty terrible names, so I'm looking forward to that. Who cares if you are anti-racist or have spent over a decade working against racism? Remember, I am not a fascist is exactly what a fascist would say. Every time I read that sentence, I can just hear it in Contrapoints' voice. So that's nice. That's nice for me. The cancel culture conspiracy belief in which, who's talking about cancel culture? What are you talking about? In which almost every conservative and every dissident leftist is part of a secret white nationalist cabal that must be stopped at all costs is not an honest delusion, much like the John Birch Society of the early 1960s. The conspiracy theory has been weaponized to serve one wing of the political establishment in its fight against the other. The intent is to cultivate a mob of paranoid fanatics who will function as the foot soldiers of the establishment. Is it? Like, interesting thesis. You have all your work ahead of you to prove that, but okay, go off, sis. Like, a gift to actual fascism. Oh, here we go. Hilariously, according to Contrapoints, she herself must be a fascist. Oh, it's like Tim Pool's like, isn't it ironic that the Holocaust Museum is asking for vaccination papers? Irony. Oh man, that's so good. I'm actually really sad that Peter Coffin fell in with this dude. I feel like I can hear some of Peter's language in this. Yeah, I watched Peter Coffin a couple of years ago, I think, when I was getting into, you know, the lefty, you know, branching out from H-bomb. you know, I got there from, I'm going to talk about this in a video. Like, I was a Sargon viewer, you know, fell into the whole, you know, went from Thunderfoot's Why Do People Laugh at Creationists to Why Do People Laugh at Feminists? And then, you know, I mean, thankfully, Christy Winters went on to Sargon's program and YouTube channel rather, and had that debate with him. And the things that she laid out, I was like, wow, actually, yeah, there seemed to be some legitimate issues that, you know, she wasn't a blue head screaming blah 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 like I'd been led to believe. And so it was that Christy Winters debate that got me branching out. And then where was I going with this? Oh yeah, so yeah, I watched some Peter Coffin stuff and it seemed really interesting. Good production value, some interesting like discussions around media and stuff, I think. But yeah, now they just it's just so bizarre seeing the weird stuff that they post. Hey, these are certainly words. Yes. I mean, maybe he did try and get this edited, and that's that was just the feedback from the editor. These are certainly words. It's certainly what looks like a book. Good luck. Yeah, Peter will be covered quite a bit in what I'm working on. I feel like they fell into a cult. Yeah, sad. It really is. I mean, I forget where I said this, but yeah, when I first stumbled upon Infrared, and particularly Has, it was kind of fun to watch for a bit, and I was like, oh wow, you know, this dude's like really going for it, and has, you know, everything covered and is really knowledgeable and blah 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 blah. And then I thought, you know, I watched enough of it to get a grasp on it, and I thought, oh, he's just a weird grifter. He yells a lot. I'm like, okay, now I get it. Yeah, Peter really supported my channel early on, and then when I started speaking negatively about fascist co-option of communist aesthetics, he dropped off. That's super sad. That's such a weird... Isn't that a weird line in the sand? So, I mean, so it's not just Caleb then. And because I'm assuming that Caleb in this is going to defend Alexander Dugin, right? And the National Bolshevik shit. Well, let's see what he has to say. Okay. Contrapoints is a fascist. I'd already forgotten. Throughout her video, she wears a Nazi-esque costume, shows images highlighting the work of far-right commentators, despite disavowing them, something she claims doesn't matter, and shows various hand signs and images known to be coded fascist imagery. Yes, that's like when I went to see The Sound of Music, and there were literal Nazis in the play, which was a strange choice for 2018 Australia, to have literal Nazis in the Sound of Music play. The oh, Caleb, it really is. Like arguing with teenagers. So I'm a high school teacher, and yeah, he's then she can do whatever she wants. Then can she? Because you're getting up me. No, you just have to not be swearing at her and throwing things at the back of her head. It doesn't mean that she gets to. Oh man, he's such a child. I bought Peter's book too. Was that for the video? It's definitely not just Caleb. This had been a current in the online left since early poll stuff. Oh, that's weird. Is it? I mean, I guess tankies, and correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, there's an element of, you know, like strength there being projected, isn't there? And so I guess when that is criticized and critiqued, these people are going to flip. Also, hello from America again. Oh, hello to you as well. What is it? It's Monday. It's about 6:30 in the evening here. Does that mean that it's Sunday night where you are? All right. Furthermore, it is worth noting that claiming innocent gestures and symbols of fascist was actually a stated maneuver of white nationalists at one point. The idea was to make the left look delusional. paranoid and stupid by claiming all kinds of benign things were fascist. It appears this maneuver has been effective. When? At one point. Do you mean in 2017? Do you mean in 1987? Do you mean in 1945? What the fuck are you talking about? Like, dude. I bought it a few years ago because I dug his stuff. Weird how that went. Yeah. It's Monday at 2 a.m. here in Arkansas. Oh, that is brutal. I said Arkansas, right? I mean, correctly, right? Because it does not, I don't think it sounds like the way that it's spelled. Though the BreadTube community and its content is certainly loved by the YouTube algorithms, certainly. Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder, Tim Pool, they are loved by the YouTube algorithms. Like, I would say that BreadTube has, you see the lists at the end of big videos, big content creators' videos of all of their patrons. I would say there's a huge groundswell of support for these creators, and that a lot of that reach is organic then. And, then they go and share it, on Reddit or on Facebook groups and things like that. But the amount of money that's pumped into like the right-wing channels clearly makes them just super algorithmically favorited. Sunday night ended about 3 to 4 hours ago. But basically, you said it right. Excellent. That is how you say it. Okay, look at that. The little rural Australian dudes not doing too bad. Okay. Oh. I keep remembering that I'm reading Caleb. Okay. Few Americans have been convinced that most of their friends and neighbors who use the wrong words or question US foreign policy are part of a secret white nationalist cabal. Interesting. Is it because that's not the point of anyone's videos? Right. I feel like he's an anti-SJW kind of dude, but, that shtick ran its course in, like 5 years ago. That, who's that kid on YouTube that said, everyone is racist, everyone is sexist, everyone is homophobic, or something like that. It was some teenage kid. And the amount of vitriol and backlash from like that anti-SJW, like the armored skeptics and the no bullshit of, the world was just insane. It feels like Caleb's on that. And like, oh, my neighbor questions US foreign policy. White nationalist, fascist. Right-wing figures like Jordan Peterson have certainly benefited from popular disgust at cancel culture, and also from his pseudo-intellectualism. That Slavoj Žižek debate with him is just super good. It's golden. And that was like I think also like one of the Sargon Christy Winters moments where you kind of just realize that these people are full of shit. Like, Peterson's got some really interesting stuff to say on, like myths and, mythology and all of that kind of, perennial traditionalism, Sophia perennialism and kind of, almost anthropological things about human history. Like, he does have interesting thoughts on that. But yeah, when you buy the Communist Manifesto and read it the night before a debate about capitalism versus communism, like, dude, get a fucking grip. Much like I'm just going to equate it to other people I don't like. Much like many Cold War Republicans, Contrapoints. Oh, oh man. Oh, these sentences are wonderful. Okay, much like many Cold War Republicans, Contrapoints lives in an alternate universe where the world consists of two types of people. Caleb, that is you. There's communists and then there's CIA-funded everyone else. That's you, Caleb. The CIA funds BreadTube algorithms. Fuck off, man. All right. Those who agree with her and the US status quo and those who are part of a vast conspiracy of people pretending to believe all sorts of different things. But in reality, they are all working for the same sinister agenda. Caleb, that is you. That is 100% you. That is the biggest projection I have ever seen in my life. I wonder if Caleb is falling into the American liberal equal left mindset here. Like, if you don't want to recreate the USSR, you must be yas queening at Joe Biden. I think so. Because, and the way that he laid out imperialism, which is basically a Lenin definition where, it's, you can understand why Lenin would lay out imperialism as only being pro-capitalist, so that the USSR couldn't be labeled imperialist. He lays it out as only being pro-capitalist or an evolution of capitalism or some shit. And so it is a dichotomy for him. You're either imperialist, an American capitalist, or you're anti-imperialist. And if you are anti-imperialist in his mind, then, or anti-Caleb's ideas, then you must be pro-imperialist. And that's the way that he's managed to lay out his entire thesis of how BreadTube, all these not random, but, individual creators, just, entertainers putting out left-wingy kind of analysis, how they supposedly support and are a huge benefit for imperialism. So much so that the CIA boosts their algorithm in Google, in fucking YouTube. It's ridiculous. The interesting things that you cited for Peterson is just him parroting the least valuable and weirdest parts of Jungian psychology. I don't think any of it is original. And maybe it's not, but I think he's a good, he's certainly engaging. He's certainly charismatic. And I think he is a good popularizer for those aspects of Jungian psychology. And he would have done a great job if he just stuck to that. Like Richard Dawkins is a really interesting science popularizer. I saw him talk in, I think, 2010, and he was really engaging, and he obviously knows his stuff about evolution. And then he starts. Well, we've all seen where Richard Dawkins has ended up when he got access to Twitter, which was very unfortunate. This honestly feels like willful misinterpretation of everything she said, or he just absolutely cannot pass a joke or a metaphor. Yeah, and that's why I was saying earlier that I would not trust anything that Caleb has to say regarding a film, because I don't think he understands subtext. I don't think he understands, themes. He doesn't understand, jokes or metaphors. Everything he takes literally, and then if he doesn't understand it, he goes, oh, well, they must be against what I'm saying then, and what they must mean is they love capital domination and atomization and a pro-US foreign policy. He just, I think you're right, he just doesn't fucking understand. He's charismatic. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, except when he fucking cries about Pinocchio. But if you're you're invested in Peterson and then he cries about Pinocchio, you're going to feel something. That's how I felt about Stefan Molyneux. I remember this really... So I've done a video about how I used to be into him. And this... there was this video he did where he was talking about US intervention in Iraq and giving this talk, this little diatribe about a grenade rolling in to a room with babies in it and blowing up, and he started tearing up, and he was so emotive, and there was so much emotion and pathos. I remember tearing up. I might have cried from that video, and it was only later that I thought to myself, that was a very strange response to that video. And I realized the kind of manipulative techniques that he was using. I was like, oh, okay, I get it. John Mulaney, oh, okay. Okay. It is a vast conspiracy against our American way of life. Watch out for your precious bodily fluids. Okay, that just proves exactly what we were both saying. Like how you were pointing out that he wants that communism with American characteristics, and then how, he just can't understand fucking metaphor or anything in film. Oh Christ, Caleb doing film theory would be like an American Soviet version of those Christian sites that warn parents about all the secular and worldly content in pop culture. It really would. Actually, I would pay for that. If you ever see this, make a different channel where all you do is go through films and tell us what you think it means, and I will sign up for your Patreon for that. 100%. This kind of childish... that straw man that I made up, that weird thing, that's childish. Black and white totalitarian thinking is what much of the Cold War synthetic left was intended to undermine. Caleb, that's exactly what you do. Everybody that disagrees with you is CIA-funded fucking Trotskyists. The Congress for Cultural Freedom and the Frankfurt School were funded in order to undermine the dichotomy of with us or against us that often led to marginalized people like African Americans or LGBT people becoming sympathetic to the Soviet Union. Now, hilariously, the very mindset the synthetic left was set up to combat is being promoted by it. Agree with them and US foreign policy, he has to get his fucking dig in, or no matter what you say or really believe, you are working for the fascists. Oh, man. The entire reason the synthetic left was covertly funded by the CIA is due to the reality that the Communist Party USA and the various Marxist-Leninists of the world were on the vanguard of combating racism and fascism. The Soviet Union brought the petition of William L. Patterson entitled "We Charge Genocide" to the United Nations, exposing the horrific realities facing black Americans. The Soviet... Oh my god, okay. Caleb, the Cold War ended the year I was born. I actually do not remember. Are you sure? Are you sure that the CIA isn't funding you? Alright, let's see this. BreadTube commentators regularly equate communists with white supremacists and neo-Nazis. Do they? Who? Tell us the kind of communists that they're equating with these people, and we will... it seems like it's Alexander Dugin, and it's that Jyoti Brar interview that he did, that he put out, that Thought Slime discussed and criticized for being class reductionist. Okay. Despite the historical legacy of the two political currents being completely opposite, pro-Soviet communists such as William L. Patterson, Nelson Peary, Paul Robeson, and Harry Haywood were key in building the Civil Rights Congress and opposing Jim Crow segregation. Great use of the word vanguard. Yeah, right? Soviet Union convened demonstrations in the 1930s in support of the Scots for a Nine, a group of African-American men falsely accused of rape. Paul Robeson, Henry Winter, James Ford, many of the most anti-racist and anti-fascist voices in US society were sympathetic to or even joined the Communist Party USA. The Communist Party formed the Civil Rights Congress to fight for African Americans in the southern USA. This is all pre-1950s though. Like, there was a big break in the 1950s around the world for the fucking communist parties that aligned to the Soviet Union after the invasion of... it was Hungary, wasn't it? Hungary? Yeah. Dude doesn't even fucking... actually, maybe he would. Maybe he does know it all and he's just leaving it out. Would love Caleb to read Anarchism and the Black Revolution by Lorenzo Comboa Everin to find out exactly what contemporary Marxist-Leninism was doing for black liberation in the 20th century. And that's where I do feel like BreadTube, there are Marxists and there are communists, probably small c communists, mostly. I don't think tankies are very big on BreadTube, but I would say that most BreadTubers are more influenced by anarchism as their operating philosophy. Like, they utilize Marx and his critique of capitalism, but they don't then use that to lay out their ideology. which I think is a difference. Like, you can obviously utilize Marx and his anti-capitalist critique, but you don't then have to be a Marxist, you know, or a big C communist. And I think that's what Caleb either dislikes or doesn't get. Like, oh, these people say they're on the left, but they're not pro-China. They're talking about the Uyghurs and they're being anti-imperialist. Okay, blah, 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 blah. While the US government coddled and did business with Hitler, communists rallied against him from day one. In 1935, Communist Party USA members led by Bill Bailey attacked a Nazi ship that had docked in the New York harbor and ripped down the swastika flag. While the US government did nothing to aid the Spanish Republic, members of the communist parties from around the world formed international brigades to fight Franco's fascism. Also, anarchists. Lots of anarchists. That's very interesting that he leaves that out. Communists formed the League Against War and Fascism, rallying progressive writers and artists to oppose the Nazis. Admiration for Stalin and adherence to ideological Marxism-Leninism was widespread amongst the most vehement anti-racists and anti-fascists. BreadTube seeks to obscure this widely recognized historical reality and equate communists with the people they heroically resisted, like Hitler and the KKK. Who? How? What are you talking about? What the fuck? Tell us. I mean, he's such a... I mean, I know before I was talking about how historical revisionism can be a positive, and there's a lot of stuff about, you know, historiography and blah, 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 blah. But this is just the most bizarre historical revisionism, and it's ideological. It's propagandistic for his cause. I don't think Caleb honestly considers anarchists as part of the left. Potentially not. I would say, yeah, he probably says that anarchists are not fighting to establish a communist state, ergo, in action, you know, as some kind of consequentialist, like what they're doing is being pro-imperialism, because they're not helping me with my communism fucking state. They're pro-imperialism. Can't even. He's leaving out the part where the Stalinists guaranteed the fascist victory by purging the anarchists. Yeah, and the what was it? The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, the non-aggression pact between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union that split Poland in two. Kind of problematic. I don't want to cancel Caleb here. I don't want to cancel the USSR. The fuck is he talking about? The original anti-fascists were a wide mix of everything from Marxists to anarchists to soc dems. Yeah, I thought so. Oh, he fucking hates soc dems. I mean, yeah, he is just absolutely whitewashing everything from history. It's bizarre. All right. Yeah, apparently BreadTube's like, actually, everyone that fought against fascism was KKK. Natalie Wynn is merely the trendsetter, but she has given birth, mama Contrapoints, to a whole layer of pathetic confusion and childlike thought conformity. But she has given birth to a whole layer of pathetic confusion and childlike thought conformity. What a bad sentence. Dude, that's getting my red pen through it. Ugh. Did Marxist-Leninism even exist during World War II? I know it was coined by Stalin, but had it been coined at that point? I actually do want to cancel the USSR. Yeah, fuck the USSR. All my homies hate the USSR. And in case Caleb ever watches this, fuck the USA as well. All my homies hate the USSA. Walk and chew gum, Caleb. Across BreadTube, accusations of fascism grow on trees. Oh, was that about him not understanding metaphor? Oh, Caleb. Railroads are fascist? Do you think that's in relation to Sean's video about like the railroads in Britain, and I think it had something to do with Thatcherism. Railroads are fascist. Man, by the end of this, Caleb is going to have a bigger straw man than they have at Burning Man. It's going to be a fucking sick party, except it's going to be like, Caleb and Haz, and I mean, that's about it. And maybe some girls with 2 holes. Who knows? Railroads. All Trump supporters are fascist. No one fucking says that, dude. Neckties are fascist? What? Citing economic data as fascist? Yeah. Oh, fuck off. Quoting classical philosophers is fascist. Fuck, dude. Leftists famously against railroads. If there's one thing that leftists hate, it is public transport and infrastructure. All my homies hate infrastructure. Knowing enough about what fascism actually is in order to defend oneself against accusations of fascism is smoking gun proof you are a fascist. Oh, Caleb, my sweet summer child. By declaring all questioning of the status quo to be fascist, BreadTube is the best friend actual Nazis and fascists ever had. You sure it wasn't the Soviet Union when they signed that fucking pact, dude? If they hadn't signed that pact, I'm pretty sure that Hitler wouldn't have been in the position he was. Seems like the USSR is the best friend actual Nazis and fascists ever have. Makes you think. The pathetic confusion fan base is more of a problem of the platform and online patronage and things like that, in my opinion. Like, people do get pretty trigger happy online, but it's not creators' fault. Yeah, and I think there is the reason that I was saying, even though I'm trying to pivot my content to focus on Australian political stuff, the reason that I'm looking at this is because, the reason that I'm pivoting is because I have problems with BreadTube. And I thought, okay, I'll read this book. Some people have asked for it anyway, my thoughts on it. And so I wonder if Caleb's problems with BreadTube are the same as mine. And they are not. They are very much not the same problems that I have with it. And I think you're right. Like, there are valid criticisms, and particularly of the platform and the kind of things that YouTube as a platform constrains, or what's the opposite of constrains? Enables and constrains. The kinds of things that, and I think there's a critique to be had of YouTube that I haven't really seen out there of it as a medium. But yeah, this is nothing. I didn't realize, of course, that the CIA was funding BreadTube videos in the algorithm. So I'm glad that I've read Caleb's writing. Wait, is he saying that informing people about fascism is encouraging people to earnestly explore fascism? Knowing enough about what fascism actually is in order to defend oneself against accusations of fascism is smoking gun proof you are a fascist. Yeah, I don't know if he's keeping up the straw man there, or because it's the final sentence in the paragraph, whether that's his thoughts and his conclusion. He's a bad writer, so I guess we'll never know. What are some of your problems with BreadTube? I think it's very US centric, and if you look on my channel, I have so many Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder, videos, the kind of chud dunking videos that do pretty well. Like my Abby Shapiro videos did well. My degree is in international relations, my first degree, and I'm very interested in international relations, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of BreadTube IR content. When the Afghanistan thing happened a few months ago. I was going to say this year. A few months ago, 6 months ago or something. I was expecting there to be a bunch of videos about the problems with the withdrawal and with the US intervention and US foreign policy as a whole. And I didn't see those crop up on BreadTube. And so I guess my interests are not reflected, and then, you know, the whole US-centric part of it, where if you kind of, like, it forces everyone to be looking at politics through a US lens. And then what happens is that, this is just my opinion, but I feel like that places kind of an ontological lens on your work as well. And it's difficult to escape. And so that's probably my biggest one or two criticisms with BreadTube. And then, you know, criticisms with the platform is it's very difficult to have, I guess on a side note, like the whole debate bro thing, and it's difficult to have discussions, earnest, interesting discussions, instead of debates. And I think that's a constraint of the platform. And particularly, you know, in comment sections and stuff, it's difficult to have discussions with people instead of limited debates. And I think that's because of the term-based nature of, you know, the comment system. I don't know what to do about it, but that's another platform-specific thing I have a problem with. By declaring all questioning of the status quo to be fascist... Oh, man. BreadTube is the best friend actual Nazis and fascists ever had. The result of their actions has been to channel millions of people who refuse to accept their mandated thought conformity into a position of interest or sympathy with actual fascism. Okay, many who would have just been attracted to anti-war leftism or class struggle economics in the past have suddenly began exploring the teachings of Adolf Hitler, Julius Evola, and Gregor Strasser after being informed by the BreadTube internet circus that they are fascists and red brands. Fuck yeah, no, you're right. Sorry, I didn't read ahead before. He's 100% saying that. Holy shit, that's I am at a loss for words. That is bizarre. That is so fucked up. So I teach modern history, and I get kids they're 16, to read chapters of Mein Kampf, mostly so we can laugh at how much of like a sad boy emo Hitler is. But that doesn't that doesn't make them go and explore the teachings of Hitler. That is so fucked. You're definitely right. St. Andrewism and FD signify, and foreign man in a foreign land have had some really good reflections about BreadTube and similar man. Interesting. I don't follow any of them. I think I've heard of St. Andrewism before. I'm just going to screenshot. And I don't know how to screenshot on this computer, so I'm just going to take a picture with my phone. All right. I'm going to look those up. Thank you. I'd be interested to see their thoughts on that. Okay, back to Caleb. Reader beware. In the aftermath of publication, buying, owning, or simply reading this book will be 100% confirmation to many BreadTubers that you are a fascist. Wait a minute. Is this Caleb's Dave Rubin arc? He could have named it Don't Burn This YouTube Channel. Oh, man. Such a disgusting trivialization of the millions who died in... Oh, fuck. Okay, sorry. I'm just going to need some more scotch before I read this, because I know it's going to fucking make me angry. Okay. Such a disgusting trivialization of the millions who died in Hitler's gas chambers and the millions more who died in the Second World War cannot even be imagined. I agree, Caleb. Your trivialization of the millions who died in Hitler's gas chambers and all the people who died in the Second World War, just so you can make a fucking shot at some people on YouTube that, I don't know, called you names? They didn't. They just had a go at you. It's pretty fucking disgusting. Wow. Oh, we got through another chapter. Wow. Oh, thank goodness. It was only like 25 pages. I thought it was I thought it was going to be 50 pages. Well, what do we think? No, I think I'm going to leave it there. I do not think that I can handle that anymore. Thank you, everybody, for coming along. As we read just more of the... I mean, for not straight-out conspiracy theory stuff, I would have to say this is some of the most ridiculous and inane writing that I've ever read. In some cases, it's less than worthless. In others, it's, clear projection. And in most cases, it's just bad faith views at propaganda. That's all I can call it. Fascism was famously only the genocide that occurred in the gas chambers, had no other characteristics of development, and ended when the camps closed. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like a Tim Pool level fucking idea of what fascism is. Like, fascism is when the Holocaust Museum needs me to show papers, show proof that I'm vaccinated. Like, just fucking stupid. Caleb is stupid. Who would have thought? Actually, before I read this book, I would not have thought. And I gave him, I guess I just assumed that he kind of had some brain and knew what he was talking about. Yeah, thank you again, everyone, for being here. Later tonight, or I guess for most of you here, later this morning, I'll be streaming with Call Me Liam. I think that is going to be pretty Australia-focused, though. But if you'd like... And it's going to be a bit more snarky as well. I think we're just going to watch some stupid videos, like anti-vax stuff, and make fun of it. Make fun of them, trivializing the Nazis. So I will probably be on again tomorrow and reading Chapter 4, Understanding Left Pessimism, which, I think would be great. I think it would be great if Caleb understood left pessimism. I think it would be great if Caleb understood anything. I'd be... Okay, he's going to have a go at Thought Slime again. Oh, I just saw a little preview. Oh, I'm going to be super angry. All right. I'm going to go now. Thank you so much. And everybody have a good night or a good morning. It was a good stream. Love your channel. Oh, thank you so much. That's very kind. Oh, hopefully you can jump in another stream. It's been great chatting. And I'm going to go and have a look at those creators that you mentioned as well. And that book on Eisenhower. Thank you.